The Ben Heck Show is brought to you by Element 14, the electronic design community and online store built for engineers and hobbyists alike. Join now and browse the store at element14.com.
In the year 2000, Ben Heckendorn built his first mod.
We can rebuild it. Smaller, better, portable.
Since then, he has continued his work, helping those in need with creative new projects. If you've got an idea you'd like to see built, why not send it to the Ben Heck Show?
Hello and welcome back to the Ben Heck Show. On today's episode, we're working on a project for Phil Golden. He has a thing called Expedition Awareness, in which he's driving his Jeep across the country to help spread awareness about the disease ALD.
Hey Ben, my name's Phil Golden and I founded Expedition Awareness. EA is a non-profit organization tasked with raising awareness for a terminal disease that affects 1 in 18,000 little boys called adrenoleukodystrophy. When our son was 3 months old, we found out he had this disease, so my wife and I have been working religiously for the past 21 months in trying to make a difference. The way we do this is through overland travel and documentary filmmaking. What I'd like from you, if possible, is a bank of LCD monitors that I can mount inside my Jeep that allow me to see what my POV cameras see, both front and rear of the Jeep. If possible, maybe even allow me to orientate the view or pan the cameras a little bit. This would be very helpful, especially with some of the off-road scenarios that we face. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'd be super excited to have your involvement in helping us raise awareness for adrenoleukodystrophy. Thanks, Ben.
What he needs specifically are cameras that can mount on the front and back of his Jeep and pan around. So we're going to be building that system for him. On the inside of the Jeep, there'll be a bank of monitors where he can look up and move the cameras and check out what's going on. So here's the camera that Phil Golden wants us to make a mount for, and video display system. It's pretty simplistic. It's ruggedized. It's got a lens out front that rotates, so you can mount the camera however you want, and then you can rotate the lens to make the image level. So on the inside, we've got a USB port, which will probably charge it, and also allow it to act as a mass storage device. And there's a battery, an SD card, and then an AV slot. So there's an AV jack, which then goes to these cables here. It looks like we've got stereo audio and then component video. So yeah, perhaps we can power this with just USB, and we're not going to be using the USB for a data connection, just to give it power, kind of like the car charger you have for your cell phone. So let's see what happens. Looks like there's life. So I'm thinking the three things that we're probably going to have going to each of the cameras is some sort of power supply to keep the battery charged at all times, then a video connection, which will plug in there. And the third thing will be whatever kind of control we come up with that makes the camera pan a little bit. Look at this glorious mess. Okay, let's go over the components we have here. We have a stepper motor driver controller here. There's actually two of them. And each one of these little black boxes will control one motor. And we've got a cute little stepper motor here. It's actually probably a little too wimpy to move our camera around, but that's all right. We can at least use it for programming purposes. Back here we have the MC Nano, which is an Arduino compatible microcontroller that was left over from one of our previous projects. And what we've done is we've written some code to drive the stepper motor based off a potentiometer analog input. And one handy thing about the Arduino compatible units is that you do have an analog input, and what you basically do is you take a potentiometer such as this one, or any analog input, and you put ground on one side, voltage on the other, and then you put the sense pin, the analog sense, to the analog connection. I don't know if you can see it here, but one of them is labeled A0 for analog 0. So what this is going to do is we're going to look at the position of the potentiometer, which is always going to be absolute, so the center of it will be 512, one end of it will be 1023, and the other end will be 0. And we're going to keep track of the position of the stepper motor and make it match this. So it's going to be kind of like an automated lever. See that? Now when you take an analog thing such as potentiometer and convert it to a digital number, sometimes you get a little bit of jittering. You won't be exactly like 512, it'll be like 512, 513, And you can see the jittering on the screen when this happens, and this would cause the motor to jitter as well. So when I work on the program a little bit more, I will put in some rounding to take care of that, kind of round off that edge so it won't jitter. So Phil needs a bank of monitors inside his Jeep so he can see what the cameras are seeing. And I have one of these 4-inch displays from AEI Components. I believe this is the same model we used on the Sega CD Portable. And these are actually, they come with plugs that run off car power, so I think this is a good choice. So I've drawn it into the computer here. And you know, we don't need that much detail. We basically need where the screen hole is, and then where the screen is, and where the metal around it takes up space. So I have put it into a grid of 4, and if you take a look at this, the screen is not perfectly centered on the unit itself. It's a little off-center. So I just basically took the minimum distance around it and then made another square around that, so when we look at it, they'll all be centered. You know, they'll all be nicely spaced. And then the tricky thing to draw in will be a lever system. So we're going to use one of these potentiometers here, and it will be behind the screen like this, and there'll be a lever that sticks out connected to it, and that's what you slide back and forth to do the virtual panning. So I've got to draw that into the computer and make it fit inside of a case, which will probably be made out of some sort of plastic. Then I have some really generic mounting holes and brackets all over it, but we'll go from there. So a potentiometer, like the kind we're using, you've got, you know, there's a dial and there's 3 leads coming off of it. And 2 of the leads go to a disc, which gives you the resistance, and the middle one is the wiper. So what we're doing in this situation is we're connecting one to ground and one's going to positive voltage, and then this is being sensed by the microcontroller. And the wiper does just that, it wipes. It's actually what the knob turns. And depending on where it makes contact, you'll either have, you know, very little resistance to this terminal or very little resistance to this terminal. So it acts as a voltage divider. And by looking at what voltage you get from here, so it's either going to be 5 to 0 in this case, the microcontroller can figure out what the position is. So here's the potentiometer we're going to use to move the lever. We're going to get a measurement from it. 0.95 inches in diameter, so we're going to draw that on our screen. And then we'll draw the shaft so we can figure out how to build our case around it so it'll fit. Now, we don't need to get the full range of the potentiometer, and we're not going to be able to either, because that would make it quite a big lever. But what we'll do is we'll just make something where we can move the lever in the greatest amount possible beneath this screen, which is probably around 4 inches, I'd say. Yep, 4.1 inches. And then in our program where we're controlling the stepper motors, we'll look at the potentiometer and see what the range and values are, and then we'll just cause our stepper motor to move within that range. So we'll basically use programming to make it work the way we want it to. All right, so this is the Jeep. Okay, here's the roof rack. We've got to mount a camera up here someplace that pans, so we've got to clear this bar here, then probably attach to these bars here, so that would be a little tricky. Oh good, a tape measure. Oh, okay, there's a measurement of how much space we have to clear. It looks like 4 inches. And where would he have space in here for this unit, which is about 8 inches square? Maybe he's thinking it could mount here? Or there? All right, so we're gonna take this here and bring it into this image. It's not gonna be super precise, but we'll do our best. Okay, so sitting in the passenger seat looking over, the monitor bank would be approximately that size, which I think is pretty reasonable. It should be above the laptop and still above the window. So yeah, I think we can go with this. So we're gonna go with this size for our monitor bank. So we'll start building this assembly, and then we'll move on to the camera mounts. So we decided to go with the elongated design because if you put it up here on the upper console of your Jeep, you know, you don't have it hanging down here in the way. And then if you're looking at like this, like driving along, the 2 cameras you're going to tilt, their controls on the left, so they're the easiest to reach. And these you don't have to control, so that's why we have the controllable cameras up here, so it's easier to reach the levers. All right, so here's your potentiometer. Slide it into the slot here, and then it's gonna have one of these things. Oh man, this is gonna go on pretty tight. That's good. Okay, so this probably makes sense now, I hope. So this is in here like this. So you'll just go. That's how you'll rotate the camera. Okay, here's the potentiometer hooked up to the Arduino so we can see the numbers changing. So we'll set a new center point, which is about 685. And then we're not going to see the full range here because we can't rotate the potentiometer all the way. So it looks like the left range is 896, the right range is 468. So those numbers are pretty consistent when I go back and forth. So we'll use that as the range, and then we'll just divide the distance between those and figure out how much that will cause the stepper motors to move. I mean, there'll be a lot of tweaking, but basically we'll be able to get the stepper motors to pan just like they're being virtually panned by a little joystick here. So that should work. This week we have a very special message from our sponsor, Element 14. Expanding on the themes of education and inspiration that are key to our build we're working on with Phil Golden for Expedition Awareness, we're now going to be talking with one of Element 14's most inspirational community members, Sam Cavanaugh. In 2005, while backcountry skiing, Sam was caught in an avalanche which resulted in the amputation of his left leg below the knee. Sam is a member of the U.S. Paralympic National Cycling Team, and Element 14 is sponsoring his training for the 2012 Paralympics in London, which is way cool.
Ben, thanks for having me on your show. And thanks for inspiring me and the viewers alike and really thinking outside the box when it comes to technology today. You know, I think that's the idea behind the words innovator or innovating. It's not so much taking a product and using it for its design purpose, but it's looking at that product and seeing what more can I get out of it? How can I truly tap into its fullest potential? It led me to understanding that I could ski again. I was going to cycle. I was going to do activities that many amputees have turned their back on because of those limitations. Today, I'm a member of the U.S. Paralympic cycling team training for the London Games in 2012. Experiencing things that I never would have experienced. And it was all about that innovation. And that is why we've created the Element 14 community. The idea is we want to bring today's innovators together with today's technology so that we can solve tomorrow's problems. Ben, I want to just thank you for opening my eyes to what today's technology can do and really embracing your opportunity to partner with Phil on this unique journey and bring more awareness to his son's disease. Ben, thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks again to Sam for sharing his message and all he does with Team USA. We wish him luck on the road to London 2012. You can find more information about all the Element 14 sponsored athletes by searching for Technology and Sports at element14.com. All right, so now we're here at home because I forgot some of my things are being shipped home, but whatever. So here's the back panel of the monitors, and it has our two stepper motor controllers and then our MC Nano microcontroller right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put an inline fuse going into that right here, coming from the car's power, you know, so we can protect it. And then here's our slightly bigger stepper motors. We're going to hook these up to this and see if we can get it to move the camera around. So in these little motors, the color coding of the motor to the stepper controller matched up. See, all the same colors are present. These motors, we have different color wires, so I better check the PDF to make sure I wire this up correctly. It's always better to check than to destroy something and have to buy another one. Well, it's got enough torque to move the camera, that's good. So now we're just going to refine the program and then build a little, you know, encapsulated unit for the camera to sit in that it will rotate around in. There's 200 steps in the stepper motor, right? And this lever only actually represents 90 degrees of motion. So 200 steps into 90 degrees is only 50 steps. So we're taking the range of values the potentiometer has here, and we're dividing it by 8.96, which will give us a number from 0 to 50. And that's how it knows which of the 50 positions to go to, which is 90 degrees of motion. See how it is basically inverse of the lever, just like a little virtual panner. So I've got the serial debugger here going. So after it gets the potentiometer value, it actually prints out via the serial port back to the computer so we can read what it's doing. You can see the position of the rear and front. See how they change? And that tells us what step we should be on. And center is about 25. However, exporting nice serial data like this has a drawback, and that's speed. Watch what happens if we power this up. Now, even though the cable's unplugged, it's still trying to output serial data. Okay. See how it's actually lagging behind me now? That's because along with everything else it's doing, it's outputting that serial data, which slows it down. So once you have the code working, you should comment that out. So now we've commented out the serial print command, so this thing should run a lot faster. So let's take a look. So now it's back up to full speed again. So the moral of the story is serial output commands are useful, but they might cause your program to slow down considerably, as you saw here. So once you're done using them, comment them out so they'll speed up your code. Okay, so I know this isn't the Expedition Awareness Jeep, it is the Ben Heck Escort, but hey, it still gets good gas mileage still. So cigarette lighter, there, power it on. There we go. So now we're running up the stepper motors off of the car's 12-volt power supply. So once we get the video converters in, we'll be able to hook that up. So the next step will be to actually make the mounts for the cameras that go off the stepper motors, and there'll be one on the hood, which will be suction cup mounted, and there'll also be one in the rear, which will be mounted some other way. Woo. So here's the part that's going to rotate right here, and we put a bolt through it, and then we put our gear right on that, and that's what actually holds the bolt in place. And then it's going to do this. And these things that come down, they're going to have rollers attached, so they will slide on the base, which will keep it, you know, stable this way and vertically. So it should work good. And then this little gear here attaches to the stepper motor, and that's actually what causes the thing to move. Okay, so we've got this block here, and we put a bearing into it, which looks like this. Got it from the hardware store. Then that goes into the base here. I guess I probably could have just bought a Lazy Susan instead of building one, but oh well. That goes into place. Anyway, so then the camera will bolt to this PVC rod, come down here. And then once the stepper motor is hooked up with its gear under here, it'll hit that gear and cause it to go along with the lever that we made earlier. All right, we're back. I have a new type of mount. We've got this thing which looks like an alien spaceship or something. Woo. And it's going to suction cup to the car. And then we've got the motor mount here, which is going to be enclosed and have some drain holes. And this is going to be a lot simpler. It just sits right here. Then we made this thing. This is going to attach to the bottom of the camera. When the camera first boots up, it'll rotate to the left till the switch hits. And then be like, oh, okay, that's the limit. That's 45 degrees. So then it'll know where it is. So also the camera could reorient itself on the fly if it had to, if there's a calibration problem. So yeah, we're just gonna make it much simpler, and the camera will be exposed, but we can put like a little baggie on it. They sell that for the drift cameras. Okay, so now we got some suction cups from McMaster Car, so it'll stick onto a vehicle. Or my forehead. Huh? We'll make these the right length. Now we're going to add some buttons to this, specifically the limit switches, and then there's going to be a user reset button to reset all the positions. So for each of the digital inputs we're putting a resistor in, it's going to be a pull-up resistor. So the normal state of the button will be high, and then when you push the button, it'll pull that pin low. So we need to pull up resistors for that. Some microcontrollers pull up internally, but just to be on the safe side. Okay, so whenever this boots up, or when you push the reset button, it's going to go over here and find the leftmost position and then set that to be a value of 200. Then it will return to match what this lever here is at. So let's put the lever here. So what it should do on boot is go click, find that orientation, and then it will go like this to match what the lever's trying to do. So let's give that a shot. There we go. Yeah, I think we need to tweak the code a little bit, but this is looking pretty good. It's got a little bit of wobble on it, which I think is probably from the motor. And probably just from moving quickly. Now, industrial strength Velcro might sound ridiculous, but this stuff is hardcore. I mean, you literally have to pry it apart with a screwdriver. That's like the best way to get it apart. Go back to home, and then it'll match the position of the lever. Yeah, so now we just need to build the other mounted unit and wire it up. There's gonna be a lot of wires, and we should be pretty much ready to go. So we've got the monitors all hooked up to a single power input here from the main unit. And then we've got an additional header here, which is going to hook up the buttons for the limit switches and the big reset button. So let's see if these monitors will all turn on. I mean, we're using a power supply, not a vehicle power supply, but I would think they should all run still. Unless we blow the fuse. Let's just see what happens. Action! Yay! Yes, so now I can pan the camera back and forth and look around at stuff.
Hey Ben, it's Phil and Brooks, and we wanted to let you know that the build arrived safe and sound. We got it temporarily mounted in the Jeep, and everything works perfectly. I'm gonna have to, order some more mounting parts. Yeah, exactly, and then we'll get it wrenched in. But everything works perfectly. It's just what we talked about. And I just want to thank you and Revision 3 and Element 14 from the bottom of my heart for all your efforts in helping us with our awareness campaign. And I know that all the other ALD families feel the same way. But it looks like it's bedtime for my little buddy, so I'm going to sign off. And again, thank you.
That's all the time we have for today. In our next episode, we're going to be building an automatic disc changer for the Xbox 360. How lazy is that? We're also giving away the portable 3D printer you saw us build in the last episode at element14.com/TBHS. Stay tuned at element14.com/TBHS, where you can join the discussion, suggest builds for the show, and even have a chance to win upcoming builds. Remember, you can always email build ideas to benheck@element14.com. Thanks for watching.